Guys, want to hear a bedtime story? I can only upload 15-minute videos, so this one is going to be in at least 2 parts. It might take me even 3. So it's going to be cut into sections. Guys, I'm walking with the Lord now, okay? But it hasn't always been that way. And as far as that goes, the Lord is Jesus to me. That's my higher power. And I've got no problem laying that on the table and leaving it there for somebody to pick up if they want to. You know, get to know Jesus before you eject him. I'm not going to harp on it too much, because people that do that, I notice that, at least I feel, that people that do that constantly, Jesus, 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 it smacks of desperation, like they're almost trying to convince themselves and not me or you. So I'm really gentle when it comes to that. And try to say this, you know, maybe lead by an example. Like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm keeping it in my pants, and I'm staying sober, and I'm trying to get strong, and I'm not stealing or dealing, you know, that sort of thing. I'm to the 10 Commandments, basically. And you can't go wrong reading the Bible and believing in Jesus. So there it is. And I've got no problem believing in it because, you know, heaven or whatever. Because I'm here now. I'm existing now. What's so hard to believe that there's another world that I'm going to exist in, you know? Or that I'm just going to, it's just going to transform, you know, that this is just a phase, and then I'm going to go on to the next phase. It's going to last even, you know, forever or something. Or maybe now it's forever. I don't know. It's beyond my understanding. I'm just going to trust in the Lord and see what happens. But I haven't always been that way. Some of my other stories, I don't know what you'd classify them as, alien abductions. I wouldn't go out on a limb like that, because I didn't see any aliens and I didn't see any spacecraft or anything like that, but it definitely follows that scenario. Satanic assault, both, neither, I don't know. I'm going to leave that up to my viewers, the people that watch these videos. This next story is a little bit different, because those stories were like it was an innocent young kid that wasn't inviting anything into his life. It just happened to me. Even the one when I was 17, I was getting in trouble, but I was just, I wasn't quite innocent per se, but yeah, I pretty much was. I've always had this little innocence about me. But 17, the one when I was 10, definitely, I didn't deserve to be terrified by what that occurrence invoked in me, you know. I didn't invite it in. In the time when I was 17, neither. I didn't do that. I didn't invite it. It just happened. This next story, I was definitely inviting it. I was in LA. It was in California, but it started in LA. I was all over California. It started in LA. And I was a hot child in the city, man. I was doing everything I could get my hands on. I was real promiscuous. I'd hang out in all the hot spots, Venice Beach in the daytime. Sun would start going down. I'd jump on the bus. It was RTD back then. I'd jump on the bus to Hollywood and hang out there all night. And I was generally on stuff that I could stay up for days. And then I had some places I could go out in the, you know, field and pitch tent. Back then I'd do that. I'd go camp out for a little while and sleep for a day or two. You know, get up and do it again. And I've always been the type of person that some people will do almost anything to get invited into the inner circle. And me personally, I've noticed that the inner circles will do almost anything to get me to accept the invitations that I get all the time. Still. But it was really happening back then because I was young and good looking and strong and smart and well spoken, you know. And eager, you know, to experience stuff. And so, yeah, it was fun to be around. So, I was an asset to any group. And there's this one little group with this guy. He wasn't a dealer, but he was a writer. He's doing pretty well for himself, and he liked to party, and he liked to party his friends out. So he kept a supply of stuff, like marijuana. He always had fat sack of good weed, you know, some acid. He had some good ecstasy. MDMA is the real stuff, MDMA. And sometimes he'd come across, you know, like mushrooms. He'd had some psilocybin, some good stuff. cubensis sometimes. You get different types. I think cubensis is a psilocybin. It's a type of psilocybin. But yeah, he was getting this Amazonian strain of cubensis. It was just, oh God. Anyway. One time I went over there, I don't know, I was trying to score some weed off of him or something. Get stoned or whatever. I was looking to get partied out. I was probably going to buy some from him. And he's like, hey man, I got my hands on some stuff you'd really like. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, let's do it. And he's like, we ain't doing it here. I don't know what time it was. It was 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, why not? He's like, no, we can't do it around here in the city. We got to go someplace. I'm like, where? He's like, we're going to go up to Big Sur, jump in the car. I'm like, I'd been to Big Sur. I wasn't that familiar with it, but I was like hitchhiking around. I wasn't doing bike trips then, but I was hitchhiking around and hanging out with the Rainbow family and the Grateful Dead family, and I'd jump in the van and get driven to, you know, regional rainbow gatherings and other little parties that people were having. But I hadn't really hung out in Big Sur, but I've been through there hitchhiking or riding in the van with the Rainbow family or the Grateful Dead family or whatever. I'm real familiar with it now. I've ridden my bike through there 100 times doing bike tours. Got some videos of it too. And so we start driving up there. It took maybe 5 or 6 hours. We were getting stoned along the way, smoking plenty of weed, listening to music, talking shit. We get there, maybe it's 10 o'clock, maybe 9. I don't know. I can't remember. We get into Big Sur, and he pulls up into this little dirt parking lot on the cliff. There's trees, but you can kind of see down on the ocean. It's overlooking the ocean. The whole Big Sur's like overlooking the ocean. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Google it if you haven't been there. You'll see some pictures. Okay. It's spectacular. We finish off one of the, the roach. Okay, it's time. Pulls out this medicine bottle. Opens it up, pours a shot. He's got the shot glass. Pours it out. I take a shot. He does a shot. And we're sitting there let's wait for a little bit. He's like, okay. After about 15 minutes, he's like, let's go before this stuff starts hitting. I'm like, okay, where are we going? And he's like, let's go the back trail. We walk down this little ravine. There's a creek. We walk down in there. He's like, this is Esalen Institute. I'm like, what's Esalen Institute? He's like, you're going to like this place, man. And we walk through the place, and it's all these big cabins, nice wooden cabins and bungalows, and there's trails and gardens and decks with deck chairs overlooking the ocean, and little gazebos and pagodas where people can meditate, and little nooks and crannies. It's a really beautiful place. Lots of gardens and beautiful trees and like almost like big bonds. It's spectacular, okay? It's heavy into the Japanese feng shui, I guess, or Zen Buddhist gardens. It's nice. We go all the way through it because he took me in through the back entrance where we could go walk all the way through it and I could check it out. Well, there's some hot springs there. So we're going to hot springs. Whoa, that sounds cool. And this is back, those hot springs, there's some stone hot springs with these stone buildings. Those have been wiped out by a big storm that got, the ocean waves got in there and just knocked them all down. I haven't been there since then. Now there's like redwood. They built it out of wood because they're afraid it's going to get destroyed again, so they had to do it a little cheaper this time because those stone tubs were expensive. But their stone tub's beautiful. It looks like a Roman bath or something, okay? We go in through the entrance, and he's like, we got to take a shower first before we get in the tubs, and it's a nudist colony, Guys, it's a witch coven, okay? Not to put too fine a point on things, but it's a witch coven. Get naked with everybody else. I jump in the showers, take a shower. My clothes are all folded up and set, you could set it, a little bench. And we walk into the hot springs. There's like 2 rooms with like 5 hot springs each. You walk in, there's a lower level, another level, and then the upper levels like this. They're covered with roofs. And the last one on the end, on one end is open to the sky, and it's the biggest one, and it has this huge communal one that like a dozen people could comfortably sit in. And there's like 4 or 5 people in it, and we just jump right in with them. There's some pretty hot-looking women. A couple of guys in there, and me and my friend get in there, and there's like 3, one of them's about my age, 19 or 20. A couple of them are in their 20s. The guys are a little older, because my friend, he's like 35, and the guys are like 35, 45, 50. There's another old guy in there with glasses, too. I think he was like a somebody too. Somebody in the what is it called, the tech industry. I know who he is. I'm not going to drop any names though, okay? But he's one of those guys that was like in the beginning of the computer stuff. I'm not too tech savvy. He's a somebody though. He's probably a billionaire by now. And we jump in. We're hanging out with him. Pretty soon the ecstasy starts hitting. I'm like, ooh. If you've ever done that, it's just intense waves of pleasure, okay? And I'm trying not to stare at the naked women, you know. So once in a while I glance over and look away. The 5-second rule, or quicker. Don't want to be rude, but it's pretty hard not to look. Good looking girl. Especially the one next to me, she's my age, you know. Obvious. And I'm like, you know what's going through my mind. I'm 19 years old, okay? And then I start feeling kind of like, whoa, you know, it's a beautiful night. It's clear, and it's really dark. The moon's about to rise. It's full moon that night, too. Yeah, he had it all planned. He knew what he was doing. But right at this point, the moon hadn't come over the mountains yet. You know? And so the stars are just real bright. You can see the ocean's kind of, you know, not that big of waves or whatever. But you can see the ocean out, you know, the Pacific Ocean's out there. And we're on the top of a cliff. And there's big mountains behind me. It's beautiful. But I'm starting to feel like the stars are starting to look kind of funny. Like they're almost moving around. Then pretty soon, because I'm just looking up at the stars at this point. Whoa. And then it's almost like these big balls of light appear. And they're like maneuvering around real slow. But they're maneuvering, like doing a little dance. In formation. And they're really bright. I'm like, holy shit. And some of them are like flashing off real quick, like shooting stars, but they're not shooting stars. They're like sitting there still, you know, like moving real slowly, and then they'll just dash off out into the distance until they disappear over the horizon. And I see one of those, I'm like, holy. I look over at the girl to say, did you see that? And when I look over at the girl next to me, she's completely covered in like foot-long hair that's glowing with bioluminescence. And she's completely covered by it. Now I'm starting to get scared. I look around and everybody else looks the same way, and then I start noticing that I'm looking like that. I'm looking at my arms and my legs, and I'm completely covered by this foot-long hair that's glowing with bioluminescence. Now I'm just transfixed. I'm just looking at my arm. And this stuff, it's happening slowly. It's not happening real quick, but I've watched my arms and the hair on my arms start curling, because it was long and straight, and it starts curling up into like coils, real tight coils, like springs, and getting closer and closer to my arms, my skin, all over. I'm mainly looking at my arm, but I was looking at my whole body, you know, and then look back at my arm, and it turns into scales, and it's just stuck. I'm covered with scales, and in a really colorful pattern, and bioluminescence is glowing. I've got webs between my fingers and claws. And my ears have basically turned into gills. The hair on my head, yes, I used to have hair. It was long, and it turned into fins on my head. And I'm looking around, and basically everybody's mermaids and mermen. And it's pretty scary. Thank God for the ecstasy. That was the only thing keeping me from completely panicking. My friend is like, hey, there's a ladder going down in the water. Let's go down there and go for a swim. I'm like, I ain't going down in the water and going for a swim. Because at this point, well, to be continued, I have to stop this video and start recording the next one.